There's this powerful unspoken pressure in our lives, isn't there? It's this force that kind of whispers we're incomplete without a partner. And it's so strong, it can actually convince us that an unhappy relationship is somehow better than being happily alone. So, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on that pressure and really explore what lies on the other side.
So let's just start with a really provocative question right out of the gate. What if everything they called love is nothing more than the fear of being alone? Seriously, what if that constant search for a partner isn't really about love at all, but about running away from having to face ourselves? This one question, well, it's the key that unlocks everything we're about to get into.
So, where does all this pressure even come from? Well, it all starts with something we can call the incompleteness myth. Think of it as this invisible script we're handed from birth, the one that tells us we are fundamentally broken or incomplete on our own. I mean, think about it. From fairy tales to Hollywood movies, the story is almost always the same. The happy ending is always presented as life's ultimate goal. This blueprint gets so deep inside our heads that we barely ever stop to ask a really simple question. Is this even the story I want to live? And this conditioning, it has some major consequences for how we behave. All of a sudden, being single starts to feel like a waiting room, right? Not a destination in itself. A partner becomes less of a person and more like a trophy, a public symbol that you've made it. Our self-worth gets completely tied to our relationship status, and this is the most dangerous part. It can convince us to stay in truly bad situations just to avoid what feels like the failure of being alone. And this quote from Carl Jung, man, it just gets right to the heart of why we avoid being alone. A relationship can become the perfect, socially approved distraction from the truly terrifying work of accepting ourselves, flaws and all. When someone else is there to validate our existence, we never have to learn how to do it for ourselves. But this avoidance, it comes at a really steep price. To keep that feeling of belonging, to keep a relationship going at all costs, we often start a dangerous trade. We start giving away little pieces of ourselves.
And this process is so subtle, you almost don't notice it. It starts with small things, what movie to watch, where to get dinner, but then it grows. You stop sharing your real opinions to keep the peace. You start hiding dreams that might cause a little friction. And over time, you're not just adapting, you're erasing yourself. The person you used to be starts to feel like a distant memory.
This is exactly what happens when love is actually rooted in fear. It stops being love and becomes a survival tactic. It twists into this fragile contract of unspoken rules. Don't be too much, don't change, don't rock the boat. And then, every little disagreement feels like a massive threat to your existence because the real fear isn't losing the person, it's being left alone with yourself. And right here, this is the quiet tragedy. Like the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius warned, the thing we should really fear isn't death. It's never actually starting to live. When you're constantly terrified of losing someone, your world just shrinks. You play it safe. You stop building a life and you start just trying not to break the one you have. But what if we could just flip the script on all of this? What if we started to see solitude not as a failure or a waiting room, but as a courageous choice, a source of incredible, untapped power? This is the big turning point. Choosing to be alone gives you something incredibly rare, something that's almost impossible to find in a relationship built on needing someone. Pure, unclaimed space. It's the chance to finally hear yourself think and figure out who you actually are without the noise of someone else's expectations. Now, let's be real. This journey is not easy. It means you're going to have to face some personal dragons, but there's a powerful way to look at this. The bigger the dragon, the more epic the story. The struggle itself is what makes you strong. Okay, so let's talk about the hard part, the part most people run from, facing that silence and all the discomfort that comes with being truly, truly on your own. This brings us to a phase a lot of people go through, the messy middle. It's that strange limbo where you've left your old self behind, but you haven't quite figured out who your new self is. You might feel isolated, maybe even judged for not following the script, but it is so important to know that almost everyone who achieves real growth goes through this lonely phase. It's a necessary, even if it's uncomfortable, part of the process. At first, that silence is just loud with your own doubts and fears. But if you have the courage to just stay with it, something amazing starts to happen. The noise of everyone else's expectations fades away, and underneath all of that, you start to hear your own voice, your own values, your own truth, maybe for the very first time. And this whole journey leads to an ultimate goal, which can be summed up in one powerful word: sovereignty. It's the state of being the sole author of your own life. It means your decisions, your emotions, your sense of worth, they all come from your own internal compass, not from constantly trying to figure out how other people will react. So what's the reward for all this hard work? Well, you don't just find yourself, you build yourself. You become this unshakable person who can finally love from a place of freedom, not from a place of desperate need. And hey, this isn't just a theory. Look at the real-world transformation of creator Tam Carr. She went from needing constant validation to being deeply in love with her own life, from staying in bad relationships to having standards that absolutely skyrocketed. And why? Because she built a life she loved by herself, and she was no longer willing to compromise her peace for anybody. It's a perfect example of what's possible. And here's what's so vital to understand. The ultimate prize for this journey isn't some new relationship or getting everyone's approval. The real trophy is internal. It's that unshakable self-worth, that resilience you earned in the quiet moments by yourself. And that is a prize no one can ever, ever take away from you. And ultimately, when you become whole on your own, the entire nature of love just transforms. It stops being a crutch you need to stand up and becomes a gift you choose to share. The connection you can build is one that's born from two complete people, a partnership built on freedom, not on fear. So, we'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on. Are you building a life that's worth enhancing? Look, a partner can be a wonderful addition to a life, but they can never be the life. The real work and the real adventure is building a life that feels so full on its own that a relationship becomes a beautiful bonus, not a desperate requirement. Thanks for joining us.